The Rake. The Rake is a collaborative creepypasta project. He was introduced in 4chan, and with the help of other users that added ideas and details to his description, they created the identity of said monster. During the summer of 2003, events in the northeastern United States involving a strange human-like creature sparked a brief local media interest before an apparent blackout was enacted. Little or no information was left intact, as most online and written accounts of the creature were mysteriously destroyed. Primarily focused in rural New York State, and nuns found in Idaho, self-proclaimed witnesses told stories of their encounter with a creature of unknown origin. Emotions ranged from extreme traumatic levels of fright and discomfort to an almost childlike sense of playfulness and curiosity. While their published versions are no longer on record, the memories remain powerful. Several of the involved parties began looking for answers that year. In early 2006, the collaboration had accumulated nearly 2 dozen documents dating between the 12th century and the present day, spanning 4 continents. In almost all cases, the stories were identical. I've been in contact with a member of this group and was able to get some excerpts from their upcoming book. A suicide note, 1964. As I prepare to take my life, I feel it necessarily to assuage any guilt or pain I have introduced through this act. It is not the fault of anyone other than him. For once, I awoke and felt his presence, and once I awoke and saw his form. Once again, I awoke and heard his voice, and looked into his eyes. I cannot sleep without fear of what I might next awake to experience. I cannot ever wake. Goodbye. Found in the same wooden boxes were 2 empty envelopes addressed to William and Rose, and one loose personal letter with no envelope. Dearest Leanie, I have prayed for you. He spoke your name. A journal entry, translated from Spanish, 1880. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I see his eyes when I close mine. They are hollow, black. They saw me and pierced me. His wet hand. I will not sleep. His voice. Unintelligible text. A Mariner's Log, 1691. He came to me in my sleep. From the foot of my bed I felt the sensation. He took everything. We must return to England. We shall not return here again at the request of the Rake. From a Witness, 2006. 3 years ago, I had just returned from a trip from Niagara Falls with my family for the 4th of July. We were all very exhausted after a long day of driving, so my husband and I put the kids right to bed and called it a night. At about 4 a.m., I woke up thinking my husband had gotten up to use the restroom. I used the moment to steal back the sheets, only to wake him in the process. I apologized and told him I thought he got out of bed. When he turned to face me, he gasped and pulled his feet up from the end of the bed so quickly his knee almost knocked me out of the bed. He then grabbed me and said nothing. After adjusting to the dark for a half second, I was able to see what caused the strange reaction. At the foot of the bed, sitting and facing away from us, there was what appeared to be a naked man, or a large, hairless dog of some sort. Its body position was disturbing and unnatural, as if it had been hit by a car or something. For some reason, I was not instantly frightened by it, but more concerned as to its condition. At this point, I was somewhat under the assumption that we were supposed to help him. My husband was peering over his arm and knees, tucked into the fetal position, occasionally glancing at me before returning to the creature. In a flurry of motion, the creature scrambled around the side of the bed and then crawled quickly in a flailing sort of motion right along the bed until it was less than a foot from my husband's face. The creature was completely silent for about 30 seconds, or probably closer to 5. It just seemed like a while, just looking at my husband. The creature then placed his hand on his knee and ran into the hallway, leading to the kids' room. I screamed and ran for the light switch, planning to stop him before he hurt my children. When I got to the hallway, the light from the bedroom was enough to see it crouching and hunched over about 20 feet away. He turned around and looked direct at me, covered in blood. I flipped the switch on the wall and saw my daughter, Clara. The creature ran down the stair while my husband and I to help our daughter. She was very badly injured and spoke only once more in her short life. She said, "He is the rake." My husband drove his car into a lake last night while rushing our daughter to the hospital. They did not survive. Being a small town, news got around pretty quickly. The police were helpful at first, and the local newspaper took a lot of interest as well. However, the story was never published, and the local television news never followed up either. For several months, my son Justin and I stayed in a hotel near my parents' house. After we decided to return home, I began looking for answers myself. I eventually located a man in next town over who had a similar story. We got in contact and began talking about our experiences. He knew of other 2 people in New York who had seen the creature we now referred to as the rake. It took the 4 of us about 2 solid years of hunting on the internet and writing letters to come up with a small collection of what we believed to be accounts of the rake. None of them gave any detailed story or follow-ups. One journal had an entry involving the creature in its first 3 pages, and never mentioned it again. A ship log explained nothing of the encounter, saying only that they were told to leave by the rake. That was the last entry in the log. There were, however, many instances where the creature's visit was one of a series of visits with the same person. Multiple people also mentioned it being spoken to, my daughter included. That led us to wonder if the rake had visited any of us before our last encounter. I set up a digital recorder near my bed and left it running all night, every night, for 2 weeks. I would tediously scan through the sounds of me rolling around in my bed each day when I woke up. By the end of the 2nd week, I was quite used to the occasional sound of sleep while blowing through the recording at 8 times the normal speed. This still took almost an hour every day. On the first day of the 3rd week, I thought I heard something different. What I found was a shrill voice. It was the rake. I can't listen to it long enough to even begin to transcribe it. I haven't let anyone listen to it. All I know is that I heard it before, and I now believe that it spoke when it was sitting in front of my husband. I don't remember hearing anything at the time, but for some reason the voice on the recording immediately brings me back to the moment. The thoughts that must have gone through my daughter's head made me very upset. I have not seen the rake since he ruined my life, but I know that he has been in my room while I slept. I know and fear that one night I'll wake up to see him staring at me. Slender Man. This creepypasta has already a description of Slender Man, so I will read it from there in Creepypasta Wiki. The Slender Man is an alleged paranormal figure purported to have been in existence for centuries, covering a large geographic area. Believers in the Slender Man tie his appearances with many other legends around the world, including Fear Dub, or the Dark Man in Scotland, the Dutch Taken Man, Branch Man, and German legend of
Der Großmann, der große Mann,
the Tall Man. Appearance. The Slender Man is a being, male in appearance, who looks like a man with extremely long, slender arms and legs. He also appears to have 4 to 8 long, black tentacles that protrude from his back, though different photographs and enthusiasts disagree on this fact, and therefore it is theorized that he can contract these tentacles at will. He is described as wearing a black suit, strikingly similar to the visage of the notorious Man in Black, and as the name suggests, appears very thin and able to stretch his limbs and torso to inhuman lengths in order to induce fear and ensnare his prey. Once his arms are outstretched, his victims are put in something of an hypnotized state, where they are utterly helpless to stop themselves from walking into them. He is also able to create tendrils from his fingers and back that he uses to walk on, in a similar fashion to Dr. Octopus. This superhuman stretching ability could also be seen as a similarity between himself and Mr. Fantastic. Whether he absorbs, kills, or merely takes his victims to an undisclosed location or dimension is also unknown, as there are never bodies or evidence left behind in his wake to deduce a definitive conclusion. His face is pale and slightly ghostly, and almost appears to have been wrapped in a type of gauze or cloth. His facial features are also an object of debate, and many people believe that his face looks different to each person, if it is seen at all. He sometimes is portrayed wears a hat, which is sometimes a bowler, a fedora, or sometimes a top hat. He may also be seen wearing a long flowing necktie or scarf, which is either gray or red. He often keeps his long, pale hands crossed politely behind his back or hanging loosely at his sides. His suit is black, sometimes portrayed as pinstripe in artwork. A common misconception, thanks to the very similar Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas. He has long coattails which he lets flow proudly. He wears long dress shoes which are always shine a perfect gleaming black. Much of the fascination in Slender Man is rooted in the overall aura of mystery that he is wrapped in, despite the fact that it is rumored he kills children almost exclusively. It is difficult to say whether or not his only objective is slaughter. Oftentimes, it is either reported or recorded that he can be found in sections of wood, and these generally tend to be suburban. He also has been reported seen with large groups of children, as many photographs portray. It is commonly thought that he resides in woods and forests and preys on children. He seems unconcerned with being exposed in daylight or captured in photos. It is often thought as well that he enjoys stalking people who become overly paranoid about his existence, purposefully giving them glimpses of himself in order to further frighten them. For this reason, it seems like Slender Man very much enjoys psychologically torturing his victims. He also often appears to float or drift around rather than walk, which suggests the possibility of him being an ethereal being rather than a creature or a man. This would also explain why he is able to remain mobile in spite of his poorly proportionate body. Even though Slender Man was fabricated on something awful forms, some people have already claimed sightings. He is seen mostly at night, peering into the open windows, and walks out in front of lone motorists on secluded roads. His main intentions appear to be kidnapping children, as when he is seen near them in photographs. They usually disappear shortly afterwards. The Slender Man has also inspired many stories such as those of marble hornets. In the end though, his purpose remains unknown. An interesting take on Slender Man by a PASTA member who is relying on the Marble Hornets series for evidence and facts. There has been a big misconception about my pal, the Slender Man, due to the appearance of this article. He does not have hair or face. Everything else is correct. There is also some questioning as to whether or not there is more than one. I find that unlikely. It's most likely Slender fucking with your head, in order to make you think that there is more than one, which he has been known to do. As of now, Slender has 3 or 4 known accomplices. There are Hoodie, Muskie, the Rake, and possibly the Observer. Not much is known yet because the next episode of Noah Maxwell RG has not yet been released, in the Marble Hornets ARG. Rudy and Mesky are possibly his followers. In the Everyman Hybrids ARG, the Rake seems to be working with him, but we aren't really sure if that is true or not. This article seems to be outdated. If you want to know more about Marble Hornets and stuff, go to Nightmind. His channel has 7 videos explaining everything there is to know about Marble Hornets. He explains by seasons and finishes putting everything together, making sense of the whole narrative of this ARG. Historical references: Brazilian cave painting. The earliest arched reference to this legend is within the cave paintings found in Serra da Capivara National Park in the northeast of Brazil, which are believed to date from as far back as 9000 BC. These paintings show a strangely elongated character leading a child by the hand, but make no reference to the extra appendages. Egyptian hieroglyphs. Next known possible reference to the Slender Man comes from around 3100 BC in Lower Egypt, with references to the Thief of Gods, or the Thief of Cook, becoming commonplace during the reign of Pharaoh Reisner. Hieroglyphic carvings representing the thief were found in the Pharaoh tomb, who was rumored to have some kind of encounter with the entity. The carvings resemble a strange figure with multiple upper limbs, one that has never been found in any other hieroglyphic language. German woodcuts. Renowned German woodcutter Hans Frankenberg created at least 2 woodcuts featuring a character he describes as
Der Ritter,
the Knight, during the mid-16th century, that were discovered in Hausberg Castle in 1883. Whilst Frankenberg was well known for his realistic depiction of human anatomy, something that was unusual amongst the woodcuts of the time, these pictures featured a skeletal, multi-limbed character. Historians are unsure of the exact symbolic nature of the character, with some claiming that it is a personification of the religious wars that raged in Europe at the time, while others say it represents the mysterious plagues that have been believed to be the reason for the mysterious abandoning of the Hesselberg Castle in the nearby village in 1543. However, many insist that Frankenberg was attempting to represent the Townman. According to the legend, he was a fairy who lived in the Black Forest. Bad children who crept into the forest at night would be relentlessly chased by the Townman, who wouldn't leave them be until he either caught them or they were forced to tell their parents of their wrongdoing. Even then, there is a chilling account from an old journal dating from about 1702. My child, my Lars, he is gone, taken from his bed. The only thing that we found was a scrap of black clothing. It feels like cotton, but is softer, thicker. Lars came into my bedroom yesterday, screaming at the top of his lungs that the angel is outside. As I asked him what he was talking about, and he told me some nonsense fairy story about their Grossman. He said he went to the groves by our village and found one of my cows dead, hanging from a tree. I thought nothing of it at first, but now he is gone. We must find Lars, and my family must leave before we are killed. I am sorry, my son. I should have listened. May God forgive me. Romanian mythology. There is also a Romanian fairy tale which tells the legend of the Townman. Featuring this description, we may have taken to refer from the Slender Man. The Townman stood in a clearing, dressed as nobleman, all in black. Shadows lay over him, dark as a cloudy midnight. He had many arms, all long and boneless as snakes, all sharp as swords, and they writhed like worms on nails. He did not speak, but made his intentions known. In the fairy tale, the tall man calls the mother to kill her husband and child before he is lit from a fireplace and clenched her in his burning embrace. English mythology. There is also an English myth referring to the tree man, whom is said to have a slim body with appendages that look like tree branches. He is only known to be seen in the woods and was used as a story that parents told their children to thwart bad behavior. There have been quite a few disappearances of children that have been said to be linked to the tree man. Creepypastas involving the Slender Man. Der Grossman.
Götterdämmerung. Schlankwald.
The Blank Face. The Slender Man Comet. The Tall Man. The Thin and Faceless.